Hello and welcome to Conservation Nation Academy. I'm glad to have you all here to explore this amazing world of conservation champions. My name is Shawna and I'll be your host today. I think wildlife is amazing and I love animals. I'm incredibly happy to introduce you to some conservation champions from Conservation Nation. Conservation Nation is an organization that is working to build a more diverse and inclusive community of people working on the front lines of wildlife conservation. They're out there working to save wildlife and wild places, and I can't wait for us to learn from them. We sent out student reporters on assignment to ask your questions to the people protecting these amazing creatures that we share this planet with. So let's take a look at who we're talking to today. Wave hi to our student reporters from the Washington School for Girls, one of our awesome Conservation Nation Academy schools. We've got Angela, Amaya, Aziza, Imaiko, and Demi. We're also joined by the wildlife detectives that these student reporters are here to interview. Wave hello to Taylor, who studies wolves in Yellowstone National Park in the United States. Min, who works with muntjacs in Asia. I didn't know what these were before I met her, but they are tiny deer that are very cute and very rare. Nina, who is in Brazil working with armadillos. Jaime, who helps out endangered bird populations in Hawaii. Tatiana, who uses clues from birds' nests in India to study climate change. And Micah, a conservationist who works with lots of animals, including Nigeria's toads, frogs, and lizards. Oh my! So what do these folks have in common besides protecting wildlife? We're gonna find out together. Let's meet our first group of experts. They are mammalogists, people who study mammals. Mammals are animals that have hair, give birth to their offspring, and produce milk. Demi, one of our student reporters, will kick us off with our first question from mammalogists Taylor, Min, and Nina.
What is your work now? Why are you so passionate about what you are doing?
I am a wildlife technician for the Yellowstone Wolf Project. So some important components of my job. One super important thing is this radio collar here. These go on some of our wolves in the park. And then it's paired with this radio receiver here, where the wolf frequencies will be inside of this. And I can drive my car around and I can pick up the radio collar signals. We also do things like making casts of different tracks. So this is a real wolf track in Yellowstone. I put some plaster in it. This allows people to see how big these things are and how big the animals are, just to get an idea of what we're studying. Along with pelts, so we have a lot of different wolf pelts. This is just a piece of one, but it allows people to be able to feel the animal, see what wolves feel like and how soft and fluffy they are. We have a skull here, so this shows people how big wolves are in comparisons to dogs. Other things like that shows them the sharp teeth. And then the most important part of my job is my spotting scope. I use this every single day to find wolves on the landscape, allow people to see wolves for the very first time. This is kind of my lifeline here in Yellowstone. Yeah, so I belong to the team that reintroduced wolves back into Yellowstone National Park almost 28 years ago. And that's inspiring after you wipe out a species from a portion of the country and now they're thriving. It gives me hope for future wildlife that could be endangered or potential of going extinct.
But at the moment, I think that I want to work with animals who are on the edge of extinction. Because if if this animal disappear, other animal will disappear too. So that reason why I want to pay my focus, my attention to this animal. I would love to take you into forest and show you how it's work. But basically in the forest, actually I repair these things. This is maybe one of my favorite. So this binocular, because like if you want to see the color of life, you need to get this binocular and you cannot disturb what they are doing, is right? So like the animal from far away and you can just look by binocular, you can see them so close, how colorful they are, what they're doing. It's very amazing. And then the next thing I will record it into my notebook because you don't want to get lost in the forest. It's really dense, a lot of plants, a lot of trees, and there's no road, there's no paths. The GPS helped me to guide the direction, show me where I can go and how I can get back. And lastly, the camera. My target is recording my happiest moment when I see the wildlife. So I try to record that. This one also can take a really good picture too. So yeah, that's how a bit of my life in the forest.
So now I am a conservationist, I'm a biologist, and I work with animal conservation. So I got to actually study the animals, but in the wild. So I go to the field and I work especially with armadillos in South America, in Brazil. And I go to the field and I study the armadillos. So we follow them to understand what they're doing and what they need to survive. And so that way, if we know what they need to survive, we can actually make sure that these things are not destroyed. So we can make sure they have what to eat and where to live. So that's my job. Giant armadillos, they are really shy. So they live in burrows. So they spend most of the time inside the burrow, and they only leave at night. They only get out of the burrow at night. And so we don't, and they are like in the middle of the forest. So we don't get to see them very often. They are really rare. They are really secretive, like super shy.
You can definitely see why we call them wildlife detectives. They work hard to study and observe their animal populations without interfering in the creatures' lives or causing them stress. All of them share the goal of protecting their species so they don't go extinct. We want to keep these critters around for years to come. Now let's fly on forward to get to know our wildlife detectives who work with birds. If we wanted to get fancy, we might call them ornithologists, meaning people who study birds. Or we might just call them Jaime and Tatiana. Aziza, take it away with our next question for our amazing conservationist.
What is the work that you do now?
I'm currently a master's student at the University of Hawaii at Manoa, and I'm working in Hawaii with two endangered species. But currently, my work, I'm in my favorite part of my work right now, because the breeding season, and when I'm saying breeding season, is that birds normally they have a period where they reproduce and then they start laying their eggs. So now, because it's starting the breeding season, I'm always, most of the time, basically outside looking for birds, because the birds that I normally work on it, they nest on grass. So you have to basically dig and find them through the vegetation. So I'm basically, my favorite part of my work, that is being outside and sharing a space with the animals. For me, I'm going to be honest, it's the maximum like self-satisfaction that I can feel when on my position, or when a human is capable of helping to conserve species and helping to take care of animals of our planet, between collaboration with other people, is for me is the most self-satisfaction that a human can achieve.
So currently, I'm a PhD student at the University of Chicago, and I basically research birds' nests. So I look at how climate change is affecting the behaviors of birds. And some may ask, like, why birds? Well, birds are really just like an indicator of how climate change affects all animals. Because birds are everywhere, you get more of a sense of how climate change is affecting animal species. And then using that information that I receive from the birds, I then can project that onto other animals with similar behavior and physiology. Most of my work involves hiking. So I'm hiking the Himalayas in India, I'm hiking the Andes in South America, like hiking all these mountains across the world to learn more about how climate change is affecting these regions. I'm super passionate because one is like is paid for, so everything is paid for, and you're getting paid to go to school. Imagine that. Like right now, you're not getting paid to go to school, but if you go to get a PhD, most likely in this field, you will get compensated for that. And another thing is that it solves some climate change issues. I'm sure you learned about climate change and how it's basically destroying everything and killing all these animals and plants, but my job and I want to figure out how this can be stopped so we can live longer. We won't have to experience, all these extreme weather patterns like hurricanes and, at a very intense rate. So I'm super passionate because it's going to improve the lives of people, but also the lives of other animals.
Pretty exciting stuff, huh? I love how everything is connected. And I love knowing that both Jaime and Tatiana are graduate students who have finished college, but are still in school learning everything they can to help save our planet. Up next, up next, we're going to slide on over to the slimy world of herpetologist Micah. As you may have guessed it, a herpetologist studies reptiles and amphibians, such as frogs, salamanders, lizards, and snakes. Amaya, my friend, take it away.
What is your work now, and what do you specifically do inside of your career field?
Yeah, my work now focuses mainly on wildlife ecology, genetics, and conservation. So I make use of ecological and genetic approach to answer questions related to wildlife and also provide best solution for wildlife conservation. But getting to amphibians and reptiles, I always look at using field surveys to understand how widely they are distributed and some factors that are affecting their distribution and some threats also. For amphibians and reptiles, we get through to the forest where we are going to see most of those amphibians, and then on sighting them, some of them, they can stay very close to where the rivers are, or some of them will be on the trees, or maybe you can see them on the ground floor of the forest. So we usually use active survey where we walk down early in the morning or very late in the night, and then we look through to hear their calls. And then on hearing their calls, we have to walk slowly to where they are, and then we can now sample them and also observe them.
I know when I was little, snakes and toads and lizards kind of made me scared and excited. They're so strange and unfamiliar, definitely scaly and slimy, maybe even a little bit scary. But scientists like Micah love them so much, and that energy is contagious. Right now, every creature needs someone to stand up for it. Did you know that Perey's toad, the animal that Micah is studying for Conservation Nation, was not seen in the wild for more than 50 years before it was rediscovered in 2013? How wild is that? It definitely takes patience and persistence from conservationists like Micah to search for these rare creatures in the forest, and dedication to get them protected and keep the species healthy. All the wildlife detectives we're meeting today study, track, and protect their species, so they have a chance to live and flourish for a long time to keep the balance and beauty our ecosystems need. We're gonna hear plenty more of them, but first, I want to explain our activity. Today we are playing Wildlife Detective Bingo. Maybe your teacher gave you a worksheet and a bingo card, or maybe they're passing them out now. If you don't have them with you, you could even take a picture or screenshot one of these examples. Basically, you'll follow along in the video and answer as many questions as you can on the worksheet. When you have the answer to a question, fill it in on the worksheet. You can find that number on the bingo card and mark it off. When you cover a line of 5, all the way across, side to side, up and down, or diagonal, you know what you've got. Bingo! What can we answer so far? Oh, number 4. Which expert studies wolves? I bet you know that one already. Same thing with number 11. Name 2 characteristics that mammals share. We can go ahead and fill in those answers, and then once they're filled in, we'll cross off those numbers on our bingo cards. Let's read through this next question together. What is conservation? We're going to put on some thinking music, and in your own words, go ahead and write down what conservation means. When you're finished, feel free to work ahead on the worksheet. I'll put some time on the clock and see how many you can answer and cross off that card before our next interviews. So we've met our conservation heroes. We've started getting some answers, but there's a lot of blank space left on that bingo card. So Angela, Imaiko, Demi, and Aziza, take it away. We need to get to know them better and get these answers filled out.
Okay, so my first question for you is, what were you like as a child?
Yeah, I was definitely a little bratty and super outdoorsy. I like to play a lot of sports, so I spent a lot of time playing soccer and basketball growing up, and I like to watch a lot of nature shows.
So when you were a kid, did you know what you wanted to do as an adult? Did anyone or anything in particular inspire you?
I knew I wanted to work with animals in some capacity. I thought I wanted to be a vet. I spent a lot of times watching Wild Thornberrys and Crocodile Hunter, and I really looked up to people like Jane Goodall and the Trimates, who are 3 women who work with primates.
That's honestly, that kind of sounds like me. I think that you as a child kind of sounds like me now.
I grew up in a rural community in Nigeria where I
Mhm.
was bathed with love and care from my parents. My parents really provided everything for us and made sure that we never lacked anything. And growing up in that rural community also exposed me to a whole lot of life-changing experiences. But I grew up in the rural community in Nigeria.
Since I was small, I always loved to work with work with wildlife. So I always watching a lot of documentary movies about the wildlife, and that's what exactly I want to do. Except I don't know what kind of that job, what that job called. So until I grow up, I just keep going around to everyone and say, I want to work with animal. I want to work with wildlife.
Me as a child, I was basically very active. I was not, I'm going to be honest, I was not very good at school, but I always had in my mind, and my mom always told me, because I wanted and I liked to be always outside in nature and playing with my friends. My mom always told me, like, you need to do homework before going outside. So that stood me up in my head when I was a child in school. So I always try to finish homework early when I was in school to be able to be outside.
So
Are you the first person in your family or community to do this work?
Yes, I am. Not many people in my family are super fond of wildlife. And this is not a normal job that a lot of people go into. So it was pretty bizarre when my family found out this is something I was going to do for the rest of my life. And for me, just getting through college was a big challenge for me. I'm a first generation college graduate in my family. And so kind of figuring out how to provide that funding for myself to get through my 4-year degree at Ohio State was a really big obstacle.
So I'm very fortunate because both my mom and my aunt are scientists as well. So I have this really strong woman that have worked in science before me. So that was really good because they never questioned when I said that I wanted to be a biologist, but they are scientists that work in the lab. And so when I said that I wanted to work in the wild, in the outside in the field, they were a little bit scared. They thought that I would get hurt and that I would get diseases and that I would be bit by mosquitoes and animals. And so it took many years for my mom to be convinced that I was not gonna be hurt by doing my work, and that I was safe, and that it was an actual job, going out in the field and working with the animals. So I'm the first woman that showed them that it's possible for a woman to be outside in the field with the animals in the middle of nowhere and actually doing this.
Most of my family hasn't gone past high school. So I'm the first one that actually got a college education. I'm the first person in my family to do this type of work and go to college, period. Luckily, I was blessed with very great parents that supported everything that I did. But they just didn't have the information to kind of helped me along with this journey simply because they were inexperienced. My mom is also an immigrant, so she is not from the United States. So a lot of this stuff had to be learned, and a lot of this stuff had to be like self-motivated. Yeah, my parents are super proud of me.
Yeah, actually, in my family, I'm the first. In my community, I'm the first. So both. And it was really challenging at the first time, but I had to put on a whole lot of hard work and also have some mentors, people that I usually look up to and say to myself, I want to be like them. And above all, follow my passion and my love, because my passion and my love has been on wildlife. As a child, when I was growing up, I always loved animal, but due to the social pressure that is there in Africa, where some area or career, they look at it as a more profitable profession, like being a medical doctor or an engineer. Right. So my family always wanted me to be maybe an engineer or a medical doctor, but I always loved animals, and I always follow my parents to the farm. I always see a whole lot of animals, lizards, frogs, and everything. And I remember even asking my father why we usually see different colors of lizards. And my father would tell me that I should just focus and study hard, and one day I'm going to know it.
Was there ever a time you wanted to give up, and what changed your mind?
Well, being a scientist and being a field biologist, it's not easy. It's not all happy every day, but like many jobs, right? So sometimes I would get hurt in the field, like I would twist my ankle, and, it would be really bad to get back home and, be 2 months with the foot up and stuff like that. I was like, what am I doing? And so sometimes you are in the middle of thousands of mosquitoes and you think, what have I done with my life? Is this my job? But at the same time, then you get to see all your work, you get to see people talking to you like, hey, I saw this news about the giant armadillo. I had no idea they were such cool species, can I donate for the conservation program and stuff like that? And that makes me, that it's like, yes, that's why I want to do this, or when I talk with children about the giant armadillo or other armadillos, and then I get messages from them like months later, saying, oh, I did my birthday party about an armadillo, and I was like, that's awesome. Like, I'm making people love armadillos too. And so this keeps me going for sure, like small wins, right?
My father used to be a ranger, but before he stopped working as a ranger before I was born. So I didn't know what he did before. And when I followed this job, my parents not happy. They don't want me to go into the forest at all. And as well as our society as well, don't want, the female go to the forest. Why you go to the forest with so many men, and how you survive, something like that. So I think like maybe the things that keep me moving on is like because my passion for wildlife. Like I said, I found the meaning of my life. I love the color of this life, so I just pursue it.
Sure. School is hard. It's super rewarding, but I struggled. It was definitely a super unique experience for me. I kind of went out of this very small community and went to a school that had 60,000 people. So that was a big adjustment for me. And then, just having to try to make it through these situations as someone in wildlife was a struggle as well. There's not many people of diversity amongst this field. And so just trying to get my foot in the door and find a position was super difficult.
I love getting to know the experts. They're just like us. It's reassuring to hear that they have some of the same challenges we do. How are those bingo cards coming along? I bet one of you out there already has a bingo. But for everyone else, let's jump back in with the experts. Aziza, take it away.
Can you show us how you do your work?
What we do is we have these cameras here. These are called camera traps. And that's because We put these cameras in the woods in front of the armadillo burrow. And when the armadillo passes by, it has a motion sensor, just like the one that makes your doorbell ring. It notices that there's someone or something walking by. And so it takes a photo. And that's how we get to see if the armadillo was there, what it was doing, when it was outside. So this is the camera. Here we have the lenses, here we have the flash, and here we have the sensor. And so we just, wrap this around the tree and hope for the armadillos to pass in front of it. And that's how we discover a lot of cool things, like when the armadillos had a baby, and we get to see the mom interacting with the baby, and all the other cool animals that get to explore the armadillo burrow. So it gives us a lot of information, and it shows us things that we would never be able to see by ourselves. So we get to have like a spy in the field for us all the time,
This is a headlamp, or it's a flashlight. And in my daily work, when I'm looking for birds very early in the morning, that there's not a lot of sunlight, or in my past experience and jobs, working in the night, when you're looking for a specific animal that you want to look for it, you just put this in your head, like here, and then you just like turn it on, and then you can basically like move. You can basically move without having to use your hands. If you're like working like very early in the night, that you don't have too much sunlight, or in the night, or in the more later in the night. So it's a very like practical tool that very useful for like us that working with animals and conservation.
Yeah, so I brought along a bird's nest that I thought was super cool. So here it is on the outside, and here it is on the inside. And this is of a chipping sparrow. So this is from back home where I'm from in South Carolina. And you can't really see it on the camera, but like this is a hair. I don't know if you can see it in the camera, but can you guess where the hair comes from?
I don't think so.
It's my hair. So is my hair. So what these birds do is they gather hair that's in their environment to build their nest. So like, our hair sheds like hundreds of pieces per day. So when you're just walking outside, your hair is shedding, you don't realize it. But like so this one is in the backyard of my house, and I found my mom's hair, I found my hair, I found my dad's hair in these nests. So what these birds do is look for hair that's in the environment, and what the hair does is create insulation. So it makes it cozy for their chicks and their eggs to live a nice life. So like next time that you are just know that your hair is probably in some bird's nest somewhere. So I think it's pretty cool.
Wow, who knew that bird's nests can give us clues about climate? Imaiko and Demi, what's our next question?
What has been the wildest or most exciting day about your profession?
Yeah, one of the coolest things I've gotten to see was a pack of 21 wolves chasing a mother grizzly bear and her 2 newborn cubs. From a carcass, which was really, really cool. All of the bears stood up on their hind legs, and the mother bear was trying to hit the wolves in the face with her claws. That was really awesome. And I also got to see newborn puppies all emerge out of the den. I saw 21 of them come out of one den hole, and that was pretty amazing.
I would say that was the first day I came face to face with gorilla. So it was quite very, very surprising, because we weren't expecting that we were going to see gorilla in the forest that day. And we are just sampling other animals. All of a sudden, I met face to face with gorilla, and I was so shocked. I didn't even know whether to run, and I didn't even make any move. So the gorilla just walked away. So that was one of the wildest experience I've ever had in the field.
I was in Costa Rica too, and then we were walking, looking for birds, and then one of my friends, she like yelled like, "Ah, look at this!" And then when we looked in the ground, it was a footprint of a jaguar.
A very memorable day for me was the first armadillo I ever captured. It was actually a small armadillo. It fell inside a trap that we had actually for lizards. And I was hoping to find a lizard inside the bucket, you know, but when I got there, there was a small armadillo. And I loved armadillos already. And I had always wanted to capture an armadillo, and I was not expecting to capture that armadillo. And so I was just there staring at it. It was staring back at me, you know, from inside the bucket with its ears.
What has been your proudest moment so far?
For me, just being able to get this full-time paid position with the Yellowstone Wolf Project, I worked really hard to get here. And just meeting Conservation Nation and the people behind the scenes there, they really jump-started something amazing in my life.
My proudest moment so far has been winning this major grant called the NSF, National Science Foundation grant. And that basically secured the funding that I needed to go to India for many years. So it was over $100,000. And like I told you before, you can get paid to do this stuff. And it is going to fund my education and fund my work for 3 years. So I was super proud of that, because that took a lot of work. It took a lot of writing and editing and, you know, all this work. So yeah, that has been my proudest moment, because it showed me, like, if you work hard now, like, you basically can have like a really good future in the end.
When I got the Conservation Nation grant, I was super happy. I was like, oh my God, someone else is recognizing what I'm doing, and they are, you know, just yeah, it's nice when you know you're doing your best every day, but it's nice when someone else tells you, hey, what you're doing is cool, you know, congratulations.
Can you imagine ending up face to face with a gorilla, or seeing all those wolf puppies, or getting paid to help nature, being given awards for it? It goes to show how many different paths are out there. So explore your interest, ask questions, and try your best. Time to get back to the experts. Gotta keep filling in that bingo card. Amaya, back to you for one last question.
What about your work brings you hope for the future?
My hope for future has always been to find a best way to protect these animals from going into extinction. And my studies and research activities trying to look at their distribution patterns, understanding their threats, and also their feeding ecology has been helping me to find a best way to conserve these animals. For instance, for frogs, from our studies, we can understand where you have high endemism or like a hotspot, where you can find those frogs in high number, both in number of species and also in abundance, and maybe there are some increased threats there, and then we will know where to focus our attention when we want to conserve and protect those animals from extinction.
One of my other passions besides working with animals is working with kids. So seeing the young kids and young, like all of you, engage with wildlife, or engage in a specific aspect with wildlife and helping to take care of animals in our planet, that make me and give me hopes for a better future on conservation.
I just believe in, like, like I mentioned before, how beautiful our, the earth is, and how beautiful on the wildlife around us. So many diversity, and that create the color of our world. So I hope that I can protect this world for all the younger generation. For me, that I can see so many wildlife out there, but also for younger generation. But in the bigger pictures here, the earth needs to have a diversity like this, because if all of us have our role and our function in this, like, in this world. And to be able to have like a really clean air for everyone to breathe, and a clean water for everybody to drink, we need to have this diversity. So I hope that I can protect this diversity for all of me and for all the future generations, that we always have clean air and clean water to enjoy.
I think it's about this. It's about the small wins. It's like we are not gonna just solve all the world's problems at once, right? But we can do little by little. So when I talk to someone about how hunting can be bad and maybe it could be done differently, and they tell me, you know what, I never thought about this, but maybe I'm gonna try to do this differently. Or yeah, when we are talking, because conservation is about protecting the animals and also talking to people and making people change a little bit their behavior so that people and animals can live better, right, in harmony without harming each other. And so these little wins where you see people changing their behavior because they realize that everything is connected, those are like the small wins that keep me going, that make me keep working in conservation, and that give me hope.
What brings me hope is talking to people like you, people who's going to be in the next generation after me. Because once, I'm old, like, who is going to carry out this work? Who's going to continue to do this work? So seeing like you and other people really interested in this work brings me so much optimism, because I know that, it's not just me trying to figure out these problems, it's other people. And like, as a collective, we can join together and like put all our minds at work to come up with solutions.
Wow, listening to all these wildlife scientists really gives me hope for the future. Conservation Nation works with these amazing wildlife detectives to help protect and conserve critical species. And they also fund all kinds of amazing efforts all around the world. Maybe they even work with your favorite animal or fund a project right in your area. Keep your eyes open. Look closely around you for nature. Maybe you'll find a way that you can help. There are kids in Chicago helping injured birds. And in Baltimore, kids are working on better recycling and trash can placement to keep litter out of their bay. Students in Idaho have talked to their government representatives about the issues they care about most. The wildlife detectives we met today need all of our help. So get curious, ask your questions, look closely, and then stand up for your local wildlife and wild places. They deserve our respect, and it's important to make sure they aren't forgotten or hurt. And now it's your turn to ask the questions. Take a second to think of a question for one of our experts today. Write it down on your worksheet, discuss it with your class, because we want to hear from you. Teachers, in your lesson plan, you can find instructions for how to submit some of your class's questions. Conservation Nation is on a mission to help save wildlife today, while inspiring, educating, and uplifting a more representative group of future conservationists. And I hope you'll join us in the ongoing fight to solve the global wildlife conservation challenge. We need every voice and every innovation to tackle the big issues our planet faces. I want to give a huge thank you to Angela, Amaya, Aziza, Imaiko, Demi, Micah, Min, Nina, Jaime, Tatiana, and Taylor, and of course to all of you students and teachers out there who are a part of Conservation Nation Academy. I'm your host, Shawna. We'll see you next time. Until then, stay wild.